Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. This will be part 2 in this subset of the series, looking at important stones and alignments and how they connect back to, well, ancient Egypt and other places. Now, for instance, New York and London, we have Cleopatra's Needles, originally from Heliopolis, down in the ancient Egyptian connections into these important stones. And some other interesting, some alignments. So I already mentioned the proportions. So the Great Pyramid times 1000 gives us this lovely set of connections, and that in itself leads us to some very curious alignments to London, which would also link especially to Mithras and other traditions, to New York as well. So centers of power and how they join together, and important stones connected therein emerging from Heliopolis. Now, obelisks represent sun rays. They emerged, they later versions of the BenBen stone, as is described in, several places in ancient Egypt, actually several important places across the world. And so London, the navel of the world, the center of the world, and how that will join up to, many other interesting connections. And so we go to, let's first go through the Omphalos itself, and over to London and the London Stone, a very curious, interesting place. Now, City of London, where the London Stone is one of 33 boroughs. It's the central borough of London, and touched on it, but earlier at previous episode I mentioned the Voortrekker Monument in South Africa, and there's a nice link. And then we also have the Anzac Memorial here in Sydney, which follows a similar theme. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description to a video by Jeff Lewis here from Sydney as well, where he shows some very amazing alignments and connections, including to Marulan, and South Africa, and the Hyde Park obelisk in, the Hyde Park Memorial, which Anzac Memorial in Hyde Park here in Sydney, which has, really a lot of. Now it also links to Marulan, where is it's a Eastern Australian Standard Time. This is exactly 150 degrees from the Greenwich Meridian. This exactly is where Australian Eastern Standard Time is measured. So it's a very important monument, which is full of interesting maths, fire relationships, which all links to the Great Pyramid. And that link will be in the description, because that links the Hyde Park Memorial here in Sydney, which it also links to the Manitoba Legislative Building in Winnipeg in Canada, which is another one of these very important alignment sites. But the Voortrekker Monument, as we see here in South Africa, has a connection to the BenBen stone and the primordial mound. And so, for instance, there's a well here, and that's the cenotaph at the bottom. Now, on December 16th, a ray of light will shine through and illuminate the cenotaph, that being the 33rd ray, because surrounding that there are 32 points, 32 sun ray, and the double chevron is a symbol, Egyptian symbol of water. Now, this architect is one of these architects who was into his stuff, who knew his stuff, and he travelled to Egypt and other places and based his design, such as on the mansions of BenBen, or Hut BenBen, built by Akhenaten, where the god Aten and the symbol, the sun ray, connected there, which this all links to the BenBen stone, Heliopolis, other primordial mound myths actually across the world, across time. So we have a beam of light, 32 rays normally, but on that special day, the beam of light shines through. This building, as with others, is all full of the numbers based on ancient systems of measure to bring us all these lovely harmonic numbers. Now, the double chevron water sign, 32 over 33, a symbolic rebirth. The sun ray will shine through the waters onto the stone and a symbolic rebirth has the BenBen stone emerged from the primordial waters. And the original Vortracker was so Egyptian that they actually had to scale it back. There were sphinxes, obelisks, other things, but that had to be scaled back because of a controversy. Now that, of course, links to the London Stone in the 33rd borough being the City of London, with the London Stone surrounded by the 32. The London Stone, Millennium, there's different versions. It's a very mysterious place, connected to John Dee and others. There's certain legends and prophecies connected to alchemical connections as well through John Dee. But that brings us to this concept. This is at the centre. As London was at the centre of the British Empire, the City of London was at the centre of London, and the London Stone being at the centre of London. That brings us to this concept of the central stone, the primordial mound, the Navel Stone, the Omphalos. All roads lead to Rome. So the Umbilicus, as in umbilical cord, from your navel, Omphalos, it was the original centre of the Roman city. All roads were measured from this point. Then we have the Golden Milestone, very short distance away. This Augustus, I believe, was the one who shifted the location ever so slightly. But if we go to Rome itself, just to give an idea. So there in the forum, both the Umbilicus and the Golden Milestone are very, very close to one another. We see them there. Okay, Golden Milestone, all roads lead to Rome. Centre of measure, now the Millennium, a milestone where things are measured. This is in Marulan as well, now because of the rising sun, but we'll get to that. There are pretty much all major, it's a survey point. Now, all roads lead to Rome, which brings us to the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, which will connect to the London Stone, or other, for instance, in Washington and other places where you have this very, very important, the navel, the Omphalos. And here we see the centre of the Greek world before the rise of Athens. And the Oracle of Delphi was centered here at the Temple of Apollo. Now, Omphalos was an ancient meditation technique. You would observe your navel. Now, it's got a bad connotation, but this... so, the Titans versus the Olympians. The Omphalos was the stone of the baby Zeus, who was fed to Kronos, made him vomit up the other children who had already eaten. Thus was the rise of the Titans. Now Zeus sent out two eagles in different directions, and they met each other above Delphi, making this the center of the earth, and he threw down a stone to mark the location. That's the Navel Stone here at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. Now there are nice links, and I'll get to those, but especially with the Vitruvian Man. That's a Da Vinci design. Look, man is a measure of all things, great pyramid, 5 proportions. So the baby Zeus, the Omphalos, the stone, well, a baby has their Omphalos, their navel is at a 1-to-1 ratio, and then as you grow, the Omphalos turns into a 1-to-5 ratio, which is incorporated in the pyramids. So many other ancient sites. Again, we see Fibonacci numbers. There's a lot of the legends contain beautiful math, cosmic importance. Okay, well, I mentioned the so to the Vortracker monument there are 377 steps. Previously I talked about the Mithraic connections at the Statue of Liberty. I've done some videos. Like, again, this is all by the numbers. All your harmonic, very important numbers are here. And there are 377 steps from the lobby to the crown. This is being a very important number. But back to the Omphalos stone. We can close those up. And so the baby Zeus 1-to-1. And then to the phi ratio as the developed point. Now, the navel being the center of the earth, the primordial waters, the primordial mound, and this which connects across so many civilizations. So the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, Know Thyself, was inscribed above the entrance to the forecourt. The movie 300, for instance, was one example of how important the oracle was. So even the Spartans would go and consult the oracle, ask the oracle. However, so it's so often in movies of done like Fire and other things they know what they're doing in these movies, and they incorporate these very important the numbers and but the traditions too. Now, for instance, in the movie of the Matrix series, he would go and visit the oracle. Well, what's know thyself written in Latin above the door? Know thyself. That was just at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. You notice the two eagles on either side as well. I've done a video also on the Matrix and filmed here in Sydney. They even photoshopped certain buildings into certain scenes, and these buildings are a very, very important esoteric tradition. The numbers, the symbols, it's just, especially to Zeus, and yeah, it's just always there. Now, the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, we have the Omphalos, the Navel Stone on the outside. We also have one on the inside. I recently, as I was looking this up, I come like ancient aliens. Apparently, this is a double helix. Clearly, they don't understand how a double helix works because it's not. It doesn't. Double helix is at a phi ratio. This is a crosshatch. Nothing even close. So it's Temple of Apollo at Delphi, the Acanthus column, or the Dancers of Delphi as they're called now, the Milestone at Rome. What do we have? The same thing. This is a very important theme which joins so many other things. Now also, originally this is the Naxian Sphinx, which was at Delphi, originally on a column. Here we see Proto-Ionic, and with Egyptian lotus theme on there rather than the later development of the Ionic. Columns, now that relates again to masonry because we have the Ionic, the swirls, we have and the Corinthian based on the Acanthus, and we have the Doric column, and there we see Proto-Corinthian, Acanthus, the Proto-Ionic, and the temple itself has Doric. So Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, which are systems of measure as well. Now, Naxian Sphinx, the Delos, so the Omphalos was originally placed on top, and it too was on a pillar here at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, a center of the world. Which brings us to Athens and the famous Parthenon, but in the ceramic quarter, which was next to the gates to Athens. All roads lead to Rome. All the roads to Athens led to this part of the city where the ceramic quarter was centered. And a couple of years ago, they found an Omphalos there, as well as a well, which is a nice link. But so Athens, Rome, and the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, in this concept, all roads lead to these points. Now, also in, as I mentioned, the Omphalos being so important in architecture, and the books of architecture of Vitruvius are one of the foundation stones of Freemasonry as well. You'll see the discussions of so much, but the navel, the Omphalos being the center of so many things. Rapa Nui was also referenced to navel of the world. This is an important, it's like a almost Jungian concept. But speaking of the Roman Umbilicus, the center of the Roman world, the center of Athens, and the Omphalos, or the Navel Stone at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. There's the Umbilicus Navel Stone of Rome, the Millennium, and we go over to Athens. There we see the location there, and we go to the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, another Omphalos, Navel Stone, center of the world. And what if I was to draw a line between Athens and the Millennium at Rome? It is within 1/5 of a mile from this. Now, I've got some more to come on this, but it is very, very, very close between those linking. But there's more to this are just, yeah, the stones, the linking connections. Have a good one.